If you witnessed a murder, would you intervene? Would you call the police or try to intervene? These are the questions that have arisen in the wake of the Kitty Genovese case. The tale is reminiscent of a roller coaster. It is about power dynamics, media sensationalism, and the real implementation of the 911 system. It is most known for its connection to the bystander effect, also known as Genovese syndrome. The bystander effect has led psychologists to examine how and when people decide to engage in conflict. But before we get into the bystander effect, this video will discuss the Kitty Genovese case. Hey everyone, it's Knowle, your gateway to understanding human behavior and emotions. Join us for fascinating insights. Hit subscribe for a part of our journey through the exciting field of psychology. So what happened to Kitty Genovese? On March 13, 1964, at 3 a.m., Kitty Genovese walked home to her Queens apartment. On her way, she was met by William Moseley, who had been following her home. Moseley pursued Kitty, eventually caught up with her, and stabbed her several times. She screamed for aid, and a neighbor told Moseley to leave Kitty alone. Moseley hurriedly fled the scene, while Kitty dashed to her apartment building. However, Moseley returned after a few minutes. He discovered Kitty laying in front of a door at the back of the apartment building. He stabbed her several times, stole some cash, and fled again. She was stabbed over a dozen times in total, and the incident lasted 30 minutes, during which time many police calls were sent. Kitty died at 4:15 a.m. while being transported to the hospital a few days after the murder. Genovese's death received little attention. It took the police a week to locate the murderer. In fact, they initially identified Kitty's girlfriend as a suspect. So 60 years later, why is this case still one of the most renowned homicides in America? So this gets us to the New York Times piece. The New York Times staff learned about Kitty's murder. However, editor Abe Rosenthal was not very interested in the murder itself. It was the witnesses to the murder. Police had interrogated 38 people as part of their investigations. 5 of them gave testimony during the trial. 2 weeks after Kitty's death, the New York Times ran an item headed 37 who saw murder but didn't call police. The piece went viral across the nation. The media labeled it a failure, painting New York in a negative light. People perceived it as a failing of humanity, and many described it as an example of urban apathy. That same year, editor Abe Rosenthal produced a book titled 38 Witnesses. He challenged us all to think about how we respond to crime and how the urban environment influences our judgments. These questions continue to bother many psychologists and academics today, and entire courses have been built around this case. The search for answers has influenced many people's perspectives on decision-making and how they live their lives. But let's return to the New York Times article for a minute. According to the first line of the story, for more than half an hour, 38 respectable, law-abiding citizens in Queens watched a killer stalk and stab a woman in 3 separate attacks in Kew Gardens. It later states, not one person telephoned the police during the assault. A witness called after the woman had died. Wait a second. You might be wondering, didn't you claim someone actually contacted the cops? Yes. In the 50 or more years since the New York Times published this article, it has received a lot of criticism. New information regarding the case has been discovered, including the fact that Kitty died in the arms of a friend, that many calls were made to the police prior to her death, and that certain witness testimony were deleted because the police had previously received the call. Certainly, 38 individuals did not witness Kitty's death. Many of the 38 people interviewed by police reported hearing screaming, looking out their window, seeing nothing, and returning to bed. The New York Times has gone back to evaluate and update information that was previously disclosed in the inaccurate article. If you want to understand more about determining the facts in this case, I recommend watching The Witness. This documentary follows Kitty's brother, Bill Genovese, as he seeks answers about her life and death. He speaks with reporters involved in the case, witnesses who were surprised to hear they were one of the 38, and other parties involved. It was nominated for a News and Documentary Emmy in 2018, so the New York Times account was not totally true. However, the impact of the Kitty Genovese case and the subsequent stories are accurate. Sociologists, psychologists, and journalists have spent the last 50 years studying the bystander effect and another phenomenon known as the diffusion of blame, both of which occur when people fail to act because there are too many spectators. These phenomena aim to explain, "I thought you were going to do something about it," and "I didn't want to get involved." The case is also one of the reasons why the 911 system was implemented before to Kitty's death. You might just phone the operator and ask to be connected to the local police station. You could also phone the station's number directly. 3 years later, federal agencies implemented a strategy to build the 911 system that we know today. The first 911 call was placed in 1968. Now, there are numerous storylines within this one instance. There's a story of a witness who failed to call the police. There's a story of a fraudulently reported article that became sensationalized by the media. And there's a narrative about how we as people react to the concept of the bystander effect and the dispersal of culpability. As we conclude, I'd like to thank you for watching. I hope you found value in this video and learned something new, and I look forward to seeing you in our future videos. I would deeply value it if you could like this video and subscribe to our channel. Your support will help us to create more valuable content. What are the key takeaways from this video that you can share in the comment section?